and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, it's Joe Roberts and Robert Constantine. How are you two doing?
I'm doing good, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Robert, how are you?
I'm happy 3 in a row.
It's
Yes,
quite unbelievable.
I feel like Verstappen now.
or Perez, mate, 3 podiums in a row. You're really on a roll of form. We have added him to the Discord for our podcast, so that's when you know Robert is properly getting involved. It is official. Robert is part of the team. He is the Hulkenberg super sub, and we're really happy to have you, mate. But yeah, let's move on to what we're actually here to talk about. We're here to talk about the Mexico Grand Prix, give our thoughts and kind of review it. So I think it's let's start first of all on what were your general thoughts on the race?
I thought it was boring, to be frank. I think when people say, "Oh, it's boring because Lewis Hamilton didn't, win," which I don't really care. I think at this point, because the racing's so exciting at the moment, I think you kind of want Red Bull and Mercedes to battle it out and not see kind of either a Vettel scenario when in the Red Bull days or a Mercedes scenario where they just run away with it. You kind of want to see that team battle between the two teams. So it's quite sad to see. We'll probably get on with what Bottas did and obviously then spinning out of his incident. But apart from that, it was a very dull race until probably the last 4 laps when it got exciting when Perez was chasing down Hamilton. Apart from that, it was quite a dull race.
Yeah. Was it a good race? I would argue that it was. Was it entertaining? Definitely not. It did pick up towards the back end of the race, and as Joe mentioned, there was that element of uncertainty towards the end when Perez kind of had the chance to make a move on Lewis and get the second place. But yeah, in terms of entertainment, it was a boring race. I think probably one of the most boring of the season. But it's a good story, especially for Mexico and for the Mexican fans. So for that, I think it was worth it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was that great a race, agreeing with you guys, but just all the stuff after the race has made it one of my favorite races ever. Everything after the race was so special, and what a moment for Mexico! What a moment for Sergio Perez! It was so special, and I will cherish this race for a long time, even though it wasn't necessarily the most dramatic. Let's talk about qualifying. Let's go to Saturday with the major incident or the major talking point, and that was all around Yuki Tsunoda, his incident with Max and Sergio, him going off the track to avoid compromising them, ended up compromising them, so doing the opposite to what he thought. I know that Christian Horner came out after the qualifying session and said we got Tsunoda, and Helmut Marko went to talk to Franz Tost and Yuki Tsunoda. I think that's harsh. I'm not going to lie. I feel like there was nothing he could have done. But what do you guys think?
I don't think he could have done anything. I think just Red Bull just a bit salty after I think I would say about a shambolic qualifying for them in terms of the fact that if you compare it to the race, they probably should have been a half a second ahead. Perez should have been on the front row with Max, and you can put either car on pole. I think I remember seeing Christian Horner saying something about Tsunoda. He didn't get Tsunoda because if you had a fear of being compromised, they should have put him. The Red Bull should have been out first or last, like the Mercedes. It's quite simple as that, and they're their own making to blame. But I think overall in qualifying, I think Mercedes were very, very promising and very good, and it looked like to be a very exciting race from Saturday, but obviously Sunday it made it a bit boring. But yeah, I think from going into Brazil, for example, I think it does, in one mind, it is a Red Bull track, would put Red Bull kind of on the back foot for qualifying, for example.
Yeah, there's not much I can add to that. On the Tsunoda incident, it's not really his fault. He wanted to do the good thing and just get out of the way. Obviously, when you're on a fast qualifying lap, I'm talking from Perez's perspective now, and you see that, you know, that dust rising, and it if you get distracted in that moment when you're focused, you tend to lose focus, and that's what happened with Perez. And then Verstappen just couldn't really do anything. He had to slow down. He had to avoid any possible collision. But I wouldn't blame Tsunoda for it. And obviously he didn't get penalized, which is fair enough. Mercedes have had a decent qualifying. I think that's mainly because Red Bull had the issues, you know, before qualifying started with the rear wing. So they were not 100% ready for qualifying, but yeah, they managed to put the car on the second row, and in the end, that's what mattered in the race.
Yeah, I did really feel for Yuki, because he was getting a lot of criticism when, as you said, Robert, he was just trying to do the right thing. He was really unlucky that he kicked up some dust, but at the same time, it's not Red Bull's fault. I'd say calling it, I think Joe, you called it a catastrophic qualifying. I'd say that was harsh, because there was not really much they could do, because Perez got distracted and had to abort his lap, and Verstappen had to ease off after seeing two cars off the track again distracted. So I wouldn't say it was a catastrophic qualifying. I would say it was unlucky for both sides. Unlucky for Yuki that he's getting criticised for doing nothing and trying to do the good thing, and unlucky for Red Bull because it did ruin their qualifying. But luckily for them, it didn't really have much impact on the race. Maybe for Perez, but not for Verstappen in the end. And let's go on to the race, because there were two main incidents, and they were both on lap one. We'll start with the main one: Ricciardo hitting the back of Bottas, sending him spinning at turn one. A lot of controversy over this, about whether Ricciardo should have been penalised, or Perez actually apologised if he hindered Bottas, which I don't really understand why, because Perez didn't do anything wrong. It was Ricciardo missing his braking point, then locking up and then hitting the back of him. Personally, I'll give my perspective first. I think it was a penalty. I thought it was clumsy. I don't understand why Michael Massey didn't get the stewards to investigate it, and he should have got I'm not sure, a 5-second or a stop-go penalty. He should have been penalised. That's the main thing, because he's compromised Bottas's race, and Ricciardo's so much better than that. He has sent it up turn one, and it hasn't paid off, and he's compromised the race of another driver. But what do you think, Robert and Joe?
So, first of all, the Bottas Ricciardo incident, just, well, history is not rewritten this weekend. The pole sitter has never finished on the podium at Mexico, and happened again. Really unlucky for Bottas. He couldn't have done anything. I do agree. I think Ricciardo should have been penalized for that, mostly because, as you said, he literally missed his braking point. He locked up his front right tire and then just hit Bottas. There's not much else you can say. They were both still in the race, and more than that, Bottas came out behind Ricciardo and was stuck behind him for a good few laps. So I think Ricciardo should have been penalized for that. But it's an unfortunate incident for Bottas, because he had a really good qualifying session. I think he was really excited to just, you know, be back on pole position and maybe try to get a new race win, but it didn't happen, which is really unfortunate for him. It could be one of his last chances at a race win as well, since he's obviously leave Mercedes for Alfa Romeo next year. So I'm really hoping for him to win at least one more this season, just as a proper goodbye to the sport. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually think it was, personally, I thought it was a penalty, but I think Bottas could have easily avoided it and just kind of, if he kind of got stuck in between Verstappen and Hamilton. To avoid it, he should have went left and blocked off Verstappen, and then it personally wouldn't have happened. Bottas would have braked either late or later, and then just went round the outside, and obviously Hamilton would give the leeway. So I think it was an avoidable incident for Bottas in terms of he should have basically boxed Verstappen in. And I think it could have been maybe Verstappen getting taken out, and then we're basically having the same conversation. But it was avoidable. But again, looking at the start, I would have given a 5-second penalty to Ricciardo for. It was a bit, yeah. Again, I agree with Robert. It was very clumsy incident.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's talk about the other incident on lap 1. I think we're all going to be in agreement again. Tsunoda and Schumacher DNFing after Ocon sends them flying. I think Tsunoda went over his left front wheel and Schumacher went over his right front wheel in a really bizarre incident just before turn 2. Just to get you guys' opinion, do you both agree that there's nothing anyone could have done in that situation? It was a racing incident.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
Yeah, definitely a racing incident. Ocon just got sandwiched between the Haas and the AlphaTauri, and that was it. Not much else to add.
Yeah, I mean, there's been 3 incidences over the weekend, and unlucky can sum up literally all of them. It's really, there's no one. I mean, Ricciardo's to blame, but Bottas is unlucky. But then you got Yuki Tsunoda on Saturday with Max and Sergio, and he was unlucky. And then the Red Bull. It basically, some unlucky summed up the incidents of this race. But let's move on to our breakdown of how each team did over the weekend, starting with Mercedes and Red Bull in their battle for the constructors. It's now very close. I think it's about 5 points, I want to say, between the two.
It's 1 point.
So it's just 1 point.
I mean, even closer than I thought. It's 1 point between the two teams. Mercedes this weekend getting a collective 18, all by Lewis Hamilton. Bottas got fastest lap, but because he finished 15th, he doesn't actually get the point. It was just taken off Red Bull. And then Red Bull got a combined 40 with Verstappen in first and Perez in third. But how would you guys sum up the battle between the two teams over the weekend?
I think it was very mixed, as in, again, I re-clarified. The reason I said Red Bull had a shambolic qualifying is because they kind of did it to themselves in a way that they should have not trust people, as in example, if for example I think Gasly were in front of, if Gasly crashed, they wouldn't have got pole either way. So I think they should have done something in the way of letting people out. Then in the race, they showed their pace and absolutely annihilated the field. I think Verstappen did very well, and Perez, for me, should have done a lot better and passed Hamilton. But again, going to the Mercedes, it shows their lack of performance in terms of altitude on the engine, and Hamilton did a very good job in stopping the Perez charge. Again, I think it would have been interesting to see what would happen if the Mercedes were in front. Would it compromise the Red Bull's tires? But it just didn't happen in the race because of Max brilliant start, I would say.
Yeah, the Mexican Grand Prix was Red Bull's race to lose, and they didn't. They won it. They capitalized on Mercedes' unlucky start. Verstappen had a really good race. Perez had a really good race. There's nothing they could have done better, I would say. Even though, Joe, you said that Perez should have overtaken, Lewis. Although Lewis is a difficult driver to pass, he's got the experience. He wouldn't have backed down easily. Yeah, Red Bull is the clear winner in Mexico. Mercedes, it'll be difficult for them because we have a few races left, and I think most tracks will be similar to Mexico, as in there will be a slight advantage for the Red Bull car. So yeah, this should have been, and this would have been, a really good race for Mercedes if the incident at the start with Ricciardo didn't happen, but it did, and Red Bull capitalized on that.
Yeah, no, Red Bull really were dominant. Perez was unlucky, got caught in some traffic towards the end of the race, which means he couldn't put as much of a fight against Lewis as he probably should have, but got unlucky with that. But yeah, Red Bull, sensational race. Do you think that this title fight between Hamilton and Verstappen is over now? Because I had a feeling it was over in the USA, and I very much feel that now it really is over. Do you think that Verstappen has won it?
No, as in, to be blunt, I think this is where I think the teammates come involved. I think if, for example, this is it's all hypothetical because obviously the race hasn't happened. As in, traditionally, Hamilton has been very, very good at Brazil. Obviously, it is a Red Bull track, but again, as in we said, Austin, Mercedes would dominate, and the Red Bulls ended up winning it. I think if, as you know, it worked out. If Hamilton wins, for example, he needs to win 3 races. I think that's pretty much quite clear now. And I think he can win Brazil, but he has to have Bottas in second in at least one of them in order to overtake Verstappen. And in the way that's going, it looks quite clear that it's 50-50. You can't kind of predict what Bottas' performance is going to do. It's kind of like Perez in a way. So it's going to be difficult, but I think it will go down to the last race. It's either be a big margin or a very small, 7 or 4 points. But I think it will go all the way because Saudi Arabia looks like a Mercedes track because of the long straights. It looks very similar. I can't remember the track. But and then it's Qatar. That I think is a 50-50 track, which kind of means it's Abu Dhabi and Brazil where Mercedes needs to find pace. And Abu Dhabi traditionally has been a Mercedes track, but obviously Red Bull last year won it. So it's in the balance, I would say. I think if it's a Red Bull 1-2, I either way, I think it's over for the title.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna say that it's probably gonna go down to the wire. I'm hoping for an Abu Dhabi finale to this season. I don't think it's over yet, but it's very, very difficult for Hamilton to get back in, in his usual form that we've seen from him in the last few years. He has to win the next few races. He has to win Brazil. Obviously, advantage for Red Bull. I think I'm going to see 3 out of the 4 tracks that we've got left. As Joe mentioned, Saudi Arabia is the only one that is kind of suited for the Mercedes car. So it will be probably one of the most difficult season finales that Hamilton has ever had. And he's been through a lot. in the last, I wouldn't say the last few years, but 2016 with Rosberg, 2014 even, 2007, 2008. He's been through it already, so I'm hoping he can somehow get his form back and win the next few races, and then we'll have a finale at Abu Dhabi.
Very, very, very interesting. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, it's exciting, and I have a feeling it's going to be very dramatic. Let's move on to the battle between McLaren and Ferrari. It looks like Ferrari have the upper hand in this fight now. Very good performances from Leclerc and Sainz in 5th and 6th. Norris took an engine penalty. I'd like to point out that in the prediction video, I said that 3 drivers would take engine penalties, and that was Norris, Ocon, and Stroll, and all 3 of them took engine penalties. So call me Mystic Meg, because that's an unreal prediction there. But as I was saying, Ferrari did very well, and McLaren got 1 point because Norris starting in the back got 10th, and then Ricciardo, after a poor start, could only get 12th. What do you think about the battle this weekend? Who do you think? I mean, it's pretty clear who was on top, but what happened with McLaren?
And we talked about this in the preview, and I was expecting Ferrari to do well because they always do well at Mexico. And then when we were talking about who's going to be on top at the end of the championship, we hoped for McLaren, but our brains were screaming Ferrari. It was expected. There's not much we can say. Ricciardo was unlucky, not really unlucky, clumsy, I think is the right word that Joe used. Norris, he's done well to get a point, and then Ferrari just had a brilliant race.
Yeah, I think this one, again, I think the battle between McLaren and Ferrari will go down to Abu Dhabi. I personally think that the next track will suit the Ferraris, and then Saudi Arabia and obviously Abu Dhabi will suit the McLaren. So it's still in the balance. I think it's 16 points, is it?
It is around that, I think.
Yeah, I think 16 points, which means McLaren need to get a decent haul of points. But yeah, I think McLaren would consider Mexico probably worse than Netherlands, I would say, in terms of the fact that they had a good position of starting, and they kind of screwed it up in a way. And if Ricciardo didn't do that incident, he would have got a good haul of points from a track that, as Rob said, that McLaren are traditionally not very good at. So, yeah, I think it'll go down to the wire, talking about Ferrari and McLaren.
Well, it looks like lots of things are going to go down to the wire. Let's really hope for that. But Ferrari are looking very, very strong at the moment, and I think they'll end up on top perhaps. And I don't necessarily think it'll come down to the final race. I think that it could be all wrapped up in Qatar perhaps, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Let's move on to the midfield battle and Aston Martin, because the midfield battle realistically is between AlphaTauri and Alpine, but Aston Martin are there to try and catch up. But to be fair, Aston Martin, not a bad weekend. They actually outperformed Alpine. AlphaTauri did the best with Snowden unlucky to DNF, but Gasly finishing 4th. Unbelievable race from him. He's doing so well at the moment, and I say this every week, but he's a top driver. Aston Martin had Stroll starting from last, recovered for 14th in a pretty meh race for him. I don't think the cameras really picked him up, and I don't think it's the first race that the cameras stayed away from him, because it's another race where he's pretty anonymous. And then his other driver, Sebastian Vettel, from 9th to 7th, did a solid drive for him, as he's been a bit inconsistent, I'd say, maybe this season. He's had some results that have been superb, but then others where he's been towards the back of the pack. You had him in Turkey going to mediums, which was pretty idiotic, really, because he could feel the conditions and he should have been like, nah, this isn't good enough. But yeah, he's been mixed this year, but 7th for him's really good. And then the Alpine, Alonso 12th to 9th, some good points, and not Stroll, and Ocon 19th to 30th. Again, started at the back, pretty anonymous race, not really much happened. What would you guys say about this battle? Anything to add?
That Gasly's carrying the AlphaTauri, and for me, from his performances, it looks like he might carry them over the Alpine in terms of the points tally at the end of the season. I think Gasly's a phenomenal driver that will get the best out of the car, which means he'll kind of do, I think, Leclerc and some kind of overperform it in a way that will get him P5, and then the Alpines will just get the low points in the from P10 or P9, which means they lose points anyway. So yeah, in that battle, I think AlphaTauri will go on top. But I think I wouldn't say, I don't know how to call it, a lower class, middle low of like, as in a fight between Alpine and Aston Martin. I don't see both of them catching AlphaTauri in my point of view.
Yeah, Aston Martin is basically out of the race. Alpine and AlphaTauri, both teams on 106 points at the moment, which makes the last 4 races really interesting. But I do agree. I think AlphaTauri will have a slight advantage just purely because of Gasly, who is exceptional. We've got Brazil coming up next, and Gasly loves that track. Alpine, on the other hand, yeah, pretty poor result in Mexico, but I was expecting it. I did say that, the Renault engine is not, it just doesn't like the heat and that altitude. But yeah, that will be an interesting battle to watch, as is the McLaren Ferrari fight, and Aston Martin is just going to watch with us.
Yeah, no, the Aston Martins are very much spectators, but I agree with you guys that AlphaTauri will end up on top. But I want to give Snow some credit, because I think that over the last few weeks he's really improved. Qualifying, he was really unlucky, and he was really unlucky to DNF. I genuinely see improvement in him. He's a little less reckless. I think his consistency is improving. Yes, he's a bit rough around the edges, but I definitely see improvement. Maybe next season we'll see a much more polished driver, but I still think that there's definitely been improvement, and if he can stay out of trouble next week, that he could get a really good finish, and he could definitely help Gasly. Admittedly, Gasly's in his own league, so Gasly can aim for those 5th, 4th, 6th, whatever, and Tsunoda probably is capped at probably a max of an 8th, but that's still some points at the moment. There's been a lot of times this season where he's contributed nothing. He's contributed a DNF or a lower down position, but I think now he's finally getting to grips with the car, and I think he's improving, and we will see that next race, hopefully. In Brazil, Gasly's great there. Hopefully Tsunoda also brings home some points, because I like him. I think that he deserves to be in the sport, to be honest. And I think his improvement and it is clear to see. And next season he'll be great, and he will help AlphaTauri secure that top of the midfield, if you're not including McLaren and Ferrari. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he brings. Let's move on to Alfa Romeo and Williams. It was clear to see who was on top this weekend, with definitely the Alfa Romeos, because Raikkonen, he got a great points finish, and that's great to see. You were mentioning, Robert, about Bottas, that you hope he can get a race win before he finishes. I hope it's for Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. I was hoping he'd get a decent points finish before he retires, and he got that this week. He got 8th. He started in 10th, and he was very consistent, pretty solid. Not really much you can say. Giovinazzi. He could get some criticism for this race. I know Joe will probably criticise him, and Robert's going to stick up for him, and that'll be interesting. But Giovinazzi 11th to 11th. Bear in mind, he was 6th after the first lap. I'm not really sure if that was the best he could do, but then moving on to the Williams, they just didn't compete. They looked rubbish. There was times where Russell, I think, was as high as P10, but then just dropped back up the order. The Williams looked absolutely rubbish, to be honest. And that's a 4-point game for Alfa Romeo on the Williams. But realistically, I think their spot is secure. It'll be interesting to see if Alfa Romeo can get some miraculous 5th or 6th finishes, but I see it unlikely. But yeah, how would you talk about the battle between these two teams, and especially looking at how Giovinazzi did?
I think I'll start with Alfa Romeo because Sam wants to know my opinion on Giovinazzi. But yeah, I think Kimi did very good. Again, I like to see him perform well. He had some bit of a reprimand this week from the stewards, but it's good to see his points finish and hopefully get some more to then push himself up the Drivers' Championship and also the Constructors as well. Giovinazzi is a bit of a like flip-flop. He does well mid-race and then suddenly decides to go drive really slow and then just finish in 10th. Also, was it 11th? Yeah, Giovinazzi for me is not going to be in the sport much longer, and that's going to be very happy for me because then I can stop moaning about him. And then what was it? Williams again. Sam, I think you described it quite clearly. It was a I would say shambolic performance. I think again their car just doesn't suit high altitude, and I don't see them performing well in the next 4 races. I think the highs of Williams becoming what did you call it, Sam? Was it?
I don't even remember what I called it.
The lower end. I think they're gonna start basically just be above us for the rest of the season. I think that's where their car is at, and then going. Yeah, I think that's it. But I haven't gone to Haas yet, have we?
No, we'll talk about them in a second. But Robert, let's hear your comeback for Giovinazzi because I know you're going to defend him.
I mean, there's not much I can defend. Just speaking strictly about Mexico, because he starts off well and then he just kind of disappears, which is unfortunate because I do like him. So I can't really defend him this week. But there's not much else. I can praise Kimi, really good result after a weekend where I'm honestly surprised he didn't get a penalty for the many times he's been involved in incidents, mostly by himself. But yeah, Williams, poor race. They just weren't there. In terms of championship standing, I don't think Alfa Romeo will get enough points to actually beat Williams. And as I mentioned it before, Williams were just incredibly lucky this season, and that's why they are currently in the 8th spot. And yeah, Alfa Romeo will have to settle for 9th, I think.
It will. I definitely agree with that. And Williams were lucky with, of course, Spa, and just so many things have just worked in their favour. And Alfa Romeo have been unlucky in some, of course, but Alfa Romeo definitely got the luck this weekend. It was announced that this week that Williams won't be taking place in post-season testing in Abu Dhabi. I just wanted to get your opinions on that. And do you think that will put the Williams in less of a good stead for next season?
Is that to do with the next season's car or just
next season's?
What do you mean, Sam? Do you mean the next season's like cars and the cars and after Abu Dhabi, or
It always announced was that they're not taking place in post-season testing, so I'm guessing that's to do with their new car.
oh no, that's to do with the young drivers program, isn't it? I think. And I know there is a young drivers program after Abu Dhabi. I don't think it will affect them. I think it will just affect their young drivers like Jack Aiken and there's Israeli. I can't remember his name. But overall, I don't think it will affect their performance.
Robert?
Not much to add. I don't really know. If it's just for the young drivers, again, same as Joe, it won't have an effect on Williams. If it's for the actual car, then it might have an impact. Although I don't think that at the moment it will matter. I think the tests in Barcelona, those will be crucial for the new season. So yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Let's move on to our favourite team, Haas. What can you really say on them realistically? Schumacher unlucky and Mazepin just... I don't even know. It was just their car's just not good enough. What else can you say, really?
Sorry, Robert, but me and Sam know like that Haas is my favorite topic of every single weekend because we can moan at Mazepin, but I think this one gets to a new level where it comes to, I think, disrespecting your teammate in a way that qualifying, where it was accusing of Schumacher of being really quite slow in front of him, which he could quite clearly see there's another car in front of him as well, just like to warm up his tires. But I just, yeah, and overall race, I just don't understand what he was doing. It's, again, he comes very anonymous, and Haas again show that their car is very, very poor. And they were 2 laps down, weren't they, as well?
I think they were 3 laps down.
They were
3 laps down. So it shows again how appalling the car is, but also I would put that to the driver as well.
Robert, anything to add?
Mazepin, the most consistent driver on the grid. He's always there in last, always gets lapped by everyone multiple times. The car is rubbish. Schumacher unlucky. What can you say about Haas? Like, what else can you say?
Yeah, it's literally getting to a point now whenever we talk about Haas, it's like, what way is Joe going to insult them this week? Because they do the same. They never challenge anyone for anything. It's just they're at the bottom. That's where they'll stay. They're never going to challenge for a point because their car is awful. And it's just, what's the point? It's getting to a point where we might as well just leave them out of the team-by-team breakdown because we just say the same thing every week. But we need Joe's entertainment of him disrespecting them.
What's your other idea of just having Haas not actually being the next 4 races?
There's just no point in them being there.
Because there's no point in them being there because they're not getting data for next season because the cars are changing. They're also are not going to catch Williams or Alfa Romeo. So realistically, I know it's probably the sponsors, but they're literally just going around the track being last.
It's like a parade. It's like a parade around the track, just driving around, looking at the sights. Might as well just wave to the fans on every lap because they're not going fast enough to kill themselves because the car's so slow. Well, there'll be some Schumacher fans. Come on, there'll be some Mick Schumacher fans who are loyal supporters of his dad. So maybe not on the other side of the garage. They might not be so many, but they might have a few. You never know. Might be some crazy Russians that have moved allegiances from Danny Kvyat to Mazepin. Who knows? But yeah, No, Haas are just Haas, really. Let's move on to a bit of positivity after talking about the negative of the Haas team and driver of the day. Who have you guys gone for?
I've gone for Gasly. I think it's quite simple reason. He's carrying AlphaTauri this weekend. Obviously, Snowder's improving. I think got into Q3. So yeah, he's doing well. Obviously DNF'd, but a very, very good result for him. He finished P4, did he?
Yes, P4.
Yeah, P4. So yeah, he's outscoring Ferrari, which ultimately I think personally have a faster car in most tracks. So yeah, he's pushing above his weight, and there's a very, very solid performance.
Yeah, I've gone for Max Verstappen for obvious reasons. He had a brilliant start, late on the brakes on the outside, just get it into first place and then go on from there. No mistakes. He locked up once at one point, but it didn't really matter. Then he had the little, fight with Bottas towards the end where he slowed down so Bottas wouldn't get the fastest lap, which in the end didn't work out for him. But yeah, he was miles away from Lewis at the end. It was just a dominant performance, and he really deserved the win.
Yeah, I have gone for, it's a surprise, I know, but I have gone for the man himself. It's Sergio Perez. And I know I sometimes get criticism saying I always pick him, but I had to pick him here. It's his home race. He started in fourth and finished third. So he went, admittedly, that was because of Bottas, but he put some pressure on Lewis in the end. He got caught up in a bit of traffic, which meant he couldn't push maybe as hard as he could have done. But honestly, what a moment for him. The home crowd were amazing, singing his name. I'm pretty sure even through the bit where they, all their message for "We Stand Together" or whatever their message is, they were still singing Perez's name. Like, the crowd were unbelievable. The first Mexican to score a podium at the home Grand Prix. He has now completely blown away. I think he's over double Pedro Rodriguez, who the track is named after his amount of podiums in the sport. I think Perez now has 15 and Pedro Rodriguez got 7. Both got 2 race wins. So he definitely secured icon status amongst the Mexican fans of Formula One. His dad was the most wholesome human ever, just running around the track with a flag, getting photos with Max Verstappen, just in tears. That was beautiful. It was just an amazing day. I was almost in tears. It was so wholesome, and I loved it. And I have to give him driver of the day because he is now an icon. He already was, but he secured a status as a Mexican Formula One icon. And as my favorite driver, that makes me really happy. So that's why he's my driver of the day. And that wraps up our podcast on the Mexican Grand Prix, reviewing it and giving our thoughts on a few of the incidents. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, download, whatever you need to do. And we'll see you later in a week because we now have 3 races in a row, I think. We'll see you later in the week for a Brazilian Grand Prix preview, Interlagos next week. And it's a track I very much like, but you'll hear more of our thoughts on it then. But yeah, until then, thank you for watching.